Okay, today we're going to be talking about transnational corporations and their effect on globalization. What I want you to do is be writing notes in your book along the way, and don't forget to add items to your glossary. I'll be reminding you of where they will go. So the first thing we're looking at is a definition for transnational corporation. So a transnational corporation has its headquarters in one country and it operates either wholly or partially in other countries. And the officers in the other countries often report back to a central headquarters, which are more than likely in developed countries. So just pause for a minute, write that definition down and add it to your glossary as well. It's important to note that many transnational corporations also have a higher annual income than some countries, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. So just have a look at this page for a moment and you'll see that some of these big companies which are listed in the middle actually own a lot of other little companies. I know the image isn't really clear, but you should be able to get a picture of some of these brands that you use at home, and you might not know that they're actually owned by big transnational corporations that are listed in the middle. So here are two corporations that you do know. So let's have a look on the left first at Starbucks. So you'll see you've got a map up the top, and what that map is actually showing you, the circles are showing you where Starbucks are. So if you have a look at the big circles, they're showing that there is over 1,000 Starbucks in those countries. Now these statistics are a little bit old, they're from 2003, which I know is over 10 years old now, but what this map's doing is actually giving you an indication of where these big Starbucks are. So you'll see a lot of them are in America, which is a developed country, and then also over in Asia as well, and Australia by this has 25 to 99. The other thing that this map is showing you is where the different things come from that actually go into making a Starbucks coffee. So a single cup of Starbucks coffee can actually depend on as many as 19 different countries. So that includes things like the coffee beans, milk, sugar, the paper cups. So you'll see that Starbucks is a big company, and their coffee is made from a lot of different places. On the right hand side is McDonald's. Again, having a look, big circles indicate that there's a lot of McDonald's in those stores, in those countries. And down the bottom it actually shows you how much money companies are making. So you'll see Starbucks, which is in a lot of countries as well, but the money that it's actually making in sales is a lot less than the money that McDonald's are making. Again, these statistics are a little bit old, but it gives you a comparative idea of what's going on in the world. Just to continue with McDonald's, because it's a company that you all know, this map is actually giving us an idea of where all the McDonald's are in the world. So your green colour, there's 1 to 100 McDonald's, up to your red colours, which is 2,500 to over 18,000 McDonald's in those areas. So you'll notice, if you know your maps really well, this obviously is North America, where there are actually very large numbers of McDonald's stores all through that area, because orange is also a high amount as well. But even have a look at Australia, we have 250 to 1,000 McDonald's locations within our country. These graphs are giving you some statistics on the biggest transnational companies. Now this is from 2011. The left-hand side is a bar chart which is showing you the biggest companies, and this is to do with their foreign assets, so not necessarily sales, but the assets that they own. So your top companies, you'll see General Electric, Shell, BP, Exxon, and then the list goes on. So a lot of car companies, a lot of petrol and oil companies as well. So you can pause and have a look and see where they are, and please write down some examples of these transnational companies in your book. The graph on the right hand side is actually comparing the revenue, so the money that's coming in, of these big transnational corporations compared to the income of big countries. So you'll notice there that companies like Walmart, which is like your Kmart or Big W in America, Walmart, Mobil and Shell, they are actually really huge companies that their income is actually more than the whole income of Sweden or Saudi Arabia or Austria, which are huge countries that make a lot of money. There are a lot of positive effects of transnational corporations. I want you to make a list of these in your book. You don't have to write it word for word, and you can pause it after I finish talking to write them down. So the big thing is that TNCs are able to benefit from cheap labour, and that's often why they move their factories overseas, because they can actually get their products made for a cheaper cost. That cheap labour also means that the product cost is kept down, and they can actually then sell the product to you. So that's a huge bonus for us, because we can get our products here a little bit cheaper, and that's why the companies are doing it. So if costs are low, the profits are then high, and a lot of companies will actually reinvest their money then into product innovation, new technology. So this is how we're always getting new and evolving technology. You could use Apple as an example. That's because they're keeping their production costs low by using cheaper labour, so then they can actually put more money into developing more technology, so that in a couple of years' time, we can have new iPhones and iPods. Another positive is the creation of jobs for people in poorer countries. These big companies go in and they actually create factories, and then a lot of poorer people get jobs that they wouldn't have got otherwise. And those jobs can be more reliable than farming, which is what a lot of them would be doing otherwise. Once the TNCs go in and build their factories, they also have to build roads and put up power poles and things like that, so that can benefit the local area as well. So make sure you get a note of those positive effects in your book. There's always a flip side to positive effects. So there are negative effects of TNCs. The first thing is that a lot of smaller businesses can't actually keep up with them. They can't move their production costs overseas, so their costs are a lot higher, and a lot of them actually go out of business, and we see a lot of that happening. Once TNCs move their production overseas to take advantage of cheaper labour, local jobs are lost. So we saw that happen with the Bonds factory closed. A lot of Australian jobs were lost. Also, we're seeing it coming up with the Ford factory, who are closing a lot of their operations in Victoria and moving them overseas. So I think by the end of 2016, Ford's actually going to finish up production in Australia, and by the end of that, something like 1,200 jobs will be lost. So that's a big negative for people in the local area. Another thing with TNCs is that they often have huge machinery. A lot of their factories are automated, so they actually can be employing fewer workers. Workers in these factories, particularly in poorer countries, have a lot poorer working conditions as well, and they can be using child labour, so that's a huge negative. These big companies, once they go in, they can actually damage the environment, or they can use the natural resources, or they can actually take up land that the local people would have been using instead for themselves. Some TNCs actually don't put a lot of money back into local areas. They're all in it to make their profit, which then often goes back to shareholders who are living in richer countries. Just wanted to make note of the word sweatshops. So sweatshops relate to transnational corporations because these are what their factories are called. In sweatshops, adults and children can work long hours in terrible working conditions for low wages. Often those working conditions were very hot, which is how they got the name sweatshops. In these places, safety can also be an issue. What's happened now is that many people have started protesting against companies who use sweatshops and child labour, and it's actually forcing them to examine their rules regarding labour. So I want you to make sure that you've written notes on the definitions and the positive effects of transnational corporations in your book. The other thing I want you to do now is to choose one product that you own and see if you can find out this information. You want to find out whether the company is a TNC, where the factories and head office are located. You might also be able to find the company annual income, and I want you to have a look and see if there is any information about the working conditions for factory workers. You might be able to find that for bigger companies, maybe not so for smaller companies. When you come into class, we will discuss transnational corporations and you can do some activities related to that.